Think evolved. The way to think in a conceptual way beyond the way most humans think. Now, does that sound intriguing? Well, welcome, evolutionaries, because today we're going to go down the rabbit hole of looking and exploring how to think outside of the body avatar, outside the body temple. And this is something that I talked a little bit about last time in exploring the body temple, but today we're going to think about how to think evolved. And by the way, a good friend of mine, some of you know him, he and I were talking the other day, and he said, you know, Joe, most people on YouTube actually edit their videos. I'm like, really? Because I only watch a lot of other videos. He goes, yeah, you're one of the few people on YouTube, like the 99 percentile, that doesn't edit a video. He said, you should bring that up. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should. So just so you guys know that all the videos I've ever put up on YouTube, I've never edited. So I didn't know that was like a thing. That you're supposed to like cut and splice and this and that. But anyway, that's kind of a sidebar thing because I just want you guys to know that I am trying to be as real and authentic as I can with you and not like cutting up bloopers or things like that, because I want you guys to understand and see, or understand, I should say, and see the real me. And I think that's pretty powerful. So there's no edits. There's just me talking about what I'm sharing with you. So let's dive back into evolved thought. So have you ever considered a thought about what a thought is? You know, my mind, because of my guides, kind of goes off on these various tangents. And, you know, I get a little contemplative when I'm thinking about what exactly is a thought. What does a thought look like from the inside out? So imagine yourself being inside of a thought. Of course, you have to imagine what that thought might look like. Is it a spherical thing? Is it a linear? What does it look like in your mind's eye? Because it's kind of fun to play with. This is kind of developing a way to look at things in a different way. So as you consider what that thought looks like, what does it look like from the inside out? What does it look like from the outside? Now, change the perspective. What does it look like from the beginning of the thought, the creation of the thought? What does it look like when that thought that you've just created is outside of you and is coming towards you? Sounds pretty interesting to play with. So what does a thought look like, again, as you play with it from all the different dynamics? Now, what if you're actually embedded within the fabric of the thought? What if you are the center of that thought? What does that thought look like when it's leaving this train station, the station within the mind? And then what about the receiver station? Where is it coming? What does that thought look like when it's coming at you? Now, I bring all this up because I was talking to a gentleman in Paris the other day. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant guy. And we were talking about the soul. You know, kind of an odd topic for me to talk about. And he was really kind of talking and just really elaborating on some really unique and interesting concepts around the soul. And the reason I was talking about thought is that I asked him a question. I said, okay, so what's beyond the soul? And he goes, Joe, what do you mean? Well, I said, what's beyond the soul? And he goes, what do you mean? Because as humans, we are trained, we have learned, we have been ingrained through these teachings, which are probably not exactly correct, that the soul is it. Now, some teachings look at how spirit is infused within the soul, but then what's within that, or what's beyond that? And then, of course, what I just kind of gave a little hint of what I was going to go to next, is what is within that. So looking at the construct of a soul, as I talked about in my last video, as the body being a container, the avatar for the soul, what is the soul an avatar for? Now, this is pretty exciting when you start peeling the onion, because it's infinite. So as we look at the soul, we have to look at what is within that soul, then what's within that container, and of course, we can go beyond as well and just really explore. And of course, like I mentioned, this whole episode is about conceptual thinking in evolved ways that are beyond the scope of how someone, just a mortal, a human, none of my followers, because you guys are exceptional, would actually think about this, because they'd be like, what do you mean something's beyond the soul? Well, yes, believe it or not, there are things beyond the soul. They're within and without. And what's interesting about this is, while I see this in my mind's eye, I could possibly describe it, but my guides kind of gave me this little picture of a pyramid triangle with the soul and within and without, and kind of infinitely going in and infinitely going out. But I don't really know how to contextualize, and even if they put words to it, what would you call something beyond the soul? Other than like maybe some type of mathematical formula like soul x to the second power to the third power, on and on and on. Because it's not just a linear progression. And that's actually kind of interesting that I brought that up, because I almost forgot to mention that, is that it's not a linear progression, because as you tap into the different resources of the depths and the expansionary nature of the context of the soul, going beyond the soul, it's not just like soul 1, soul 2, it actually creates an exponential nature. It has an exponential nature to it. So you're able to see even further as you stretch the boundaries beyond time and space, as we are trapped in here. So again, we are trapped in, you like my stick drawing, human perceptions. And this is actually one of the interesting things about people that are teaching about the pineal gland. And you guys have kind of heard me rant on this before, but the pineal gland really is something that is a construct in the third dimension. It is a crystalline structure, which, again, people use Kundalini, which is a piezoelectric type of connection. And of course, my guides have showed me piezomagnetics, which actually now allows, once you've tapped into the heart, to actually create and condense and tune those crystals in, which is what creates the law of attunement. The law of attunement is completely heart-based, where the Kundalini, as it comes up to create this piezoelectric effect, is really, it creates a pressure. It's an unnatural thing. It's not really done in a state of love. So really, when you look at a piezomagnetic effect, and you're actually attuning the crystals in your pineal gland with your heart, the power of love, and beauty, then it's really, really powerful. So, going beyond human perception. So, who came up with the idea of a soul? Well, I don't know. But it's obviously been around for a very long time. And so what, like I mentioned, is beyond the soul, and why your mind is attached to your body, or while your mind is attached to your body, there's no way you can go beyond the attachment that your mind has for your body. And of course, you've heard me talk about etheric meditation. So moving beyond all things, time and space, the astral, etc., to go into the etheric. And once you do that, follow along. It's pretty interesting. So while your mind is attached to the biologic, our minds are limited. And again, remember, limited based on the construct of being within and trapped within the brain that we have, to the size of our brains. Yeah, I read ahead. Because remember, as we're in this body is a container, and so this container has a way of limiting our ability to go beyond. I mean, we can only go so far, but if we step out of the container with our awareness, our consciousness, and go beyond that, we step out of the human physical container, maybe into an astral container, so which is a smidge better. And of course, I'm not going to go through all the delineations of how we move through containers, or actually the number of containers, because really that's a perception that we self-generate. And I'll talk about that in just a second, and how to defer and diffuse the ability to self-generate those containers in moving into the etheric, because once you've stepped into the etheric, there is no container. So you become, and this is actually a very interesting word because I'd never heard this word before. My guides gave me this, permeation. So it is merging with the all as you are attuned to the infinite densities of all. And when I say that, so you are attuning to the densities within the all. And I'm using the term densities, and it's not really a right term, because what I'm seeing is, let's say, 1 billion particles in this space right here. And then there's 10 billion particles, and then there's 100 billion, there's 1 trillion. So all within this same space. So in other words, it's limitless with regards to the etheric nature within this space that I'm holding between my hands. And what's cool about that is as you attune, you go into deeper levels within this particle structure. And I'm using particles, which isn't exactly right, but I'm trying to figure out a way to give you a visualization, because it's like the permeation of salt in water. So as we attune to different levels, we attune to the different levels of permeation. We become that permeation. And so right now in the 3D, we are living in this construct of this permeation of atoms and this and that. But there is so much beyond this. And this is what I'm really wanted to share with you, is so how we can step beyond just this basic permeation to jump off a cliff. And when I say jump off a cliff, not literally, but it's a great metaphor. Because as we step up to see beyond the human veil, we step up to a ledge, metaphorically speaking. And as we look over this edge, we kind of go, dang, that's pretty crazy. It's like a long way down. I didn't even see the bottom. It's like this abyss thing. And so what I want to encourage you to do, because there's a safety net. You can jump, you can fly. There is no way that anything can happen to you when you're going through an expansionary construct with regards to how you see the world in a new way, how you see all things, not just the world, but all things, because you get to see new worlds, new beings, everything becomes anew, which is really exciting. So when you leap into the unknown, you discover what is beyond the unknown. Now, have you ever thought about that? That's kind of a cool thing to think about. What is beyond the unknown? Well, it's kind of like these great sailors of old that would sail into these uncharted waters like they're going to fall off the map. Remember, the earth is flat or whatever, however they say that. But they did that courageously. Well, the mind is really the same thing. So when you take this leap, and you break through the constructs, these avatars that are holding you back, you become an expansionary being beyond what you could ever possibly imagine. And when you do that, great knowledge, great insights, it's almost like the great philosophers of old, like Plato and Pythagoras. And it really, to me, I have to imagine what and how their minds worked when they kind of thought these concepts up, like Platonic solids and things that are way beyond even the imagination of what most people could even dream of today. They had to leave and exit their body temple to go up and have teachers within the etheric that showed them these amazing things, which they brought back in the mathematics and all the different things, the sacred geometry. And this is what I see for you and this is the time that we do this. We are now enabling ourselves to go beyond this body temple in order to stretch beyond whatever limitation that we had. But the key is breaking down or stepping out of the construct that's limiting you. And when I say the construct, moving your consciousness beyond. And this is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is something where you get to a point, and I think some of you who have been with me for a long time remember me telling stories how when my guides first introduced this to me, how I would close my eyes and I would imagine where and how big the room I was in. And it'd be, let's say, about this big as I closed my eyes. And then I would wonder what was beyond that and beyond that and beyond that. And what was interesting is doing physical type of constructs, I was like, well, how do I break through these walls that are like here, because I want to get to here and then go beyond that. And so I would actually, in my mind's eye, run like a cartoon, boom, and I'd hit this wall and I'd bounce off. I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't very successful, but let me try it again. Because really, it's meditation. And it's like, wow, this is kind of interesting how I'm unfolding this. But once I understood that I created the barrier, but not only did I create the barrier, the construct, I was the construct. And as soon as I realized I was the construct that was holding me together within this structure, I began to be able to dissolve these, because once you dissolve things, you now are attuning to a different level. Remember, it's all about the heart and attuning and creating this magnetic effect within your pineal gland. And this is heart-driven. It is not kundalini-driven. It is not snake-driven. It is heart-driven. And this is the one that this is the method for unfolding the goodness. And by the way, when you're unlocking things with your heart, you have sovereignty. You have dominion over all things because you're having the pure access of the soul's construct. And that soul, as you attune, is attuning to greater levels, creating different and unique higher levels of awareness. And I just think that is beautiful. So now, I will have this, and I just put this note here. So what happens, though, is when we get to this point and we hit this wall, or whatever it might be, and it may be different for you, is your mind may start having some chatter in it, and it may kind of want to go off. And what that is the brain, the lower self going, you know, it's kind of comfortable here. I don't really want to jump off a ledge and go into that unknown, uncharted, etheric space because I don't know anything about it. Well, what happens is when you do that, and it still happens to me occasionally, not nearly as much as it did when I was started to doing the exploring to meet my guides and different gods and different things. But what you do, or what I do, is I have an anchor phrase, and that anchor phrase is come back. So if I am going out and a thought comes by and interrupts the process that I'm going through, I just automatically say, come back. And when I say come back, it pulls me back into that process so that I can continue to expand. And I may do this 2 or 3 times, depending on where I'm going or the depth or the levels in which I am encroaching into, that I am stepping into. And stepping really isn't even a great word because that still implies that I'm in my physical body, which I am not. So I would love for you to experiment with stepping into the etheric abyss and exploring this and going beyond and just saying, I have no body, and just recognizing that this body is just an avatar that is what is happening right now. And so, but you can go beyond what is happening right now to create your own present. And that means that you are unlocking the future of who you are in an instant. And it's so exciting. You totally will change the way you think. You'll become more conceptual. You'll become more perspective-oriented and looking at things from this way. Because people always say, talk about, let me talk to my higher self. Well, it's not really your higher self, but I think I've talked about this before. I know I've talked about this in other videos. It's about the future self. So, but with that, without going down a different tangent, because as most of you know, I'm a little ADD and I kind of get excited and I talk about different things, which kind of go like, take you on 2 or 3 different journeys in one video, and I'm trying to become better at focusing on one thing. And so as I talk about thoughts, as I talk about containers and avatars and expanding into the etheric, to create this otherworldly awareness that you have inside of you is incredibly powerful. So please, leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts. If you have a challenge stepping off the cliff, just let me know. Send me a personal message. I'm happy to guide you and suggest some ideals around doing this. Because, again, if you're following me on this video and you're one of the people that are watching this video, it means that you are equipped. You are not here by mistake. And that's such a beautiful thing. It's amazing to me, the interactions, this beautiful interaction that I have with all of you. So with that, I am Joe Heller, and I love you guys so much, and I hope you enjoyed this training because there is so much more beyond this human body and the way we think and conceptualize. And I wanted to introduce this concept to you because I know that you are capable of going beyond even what you could possibly imagine, because I see this radiance, this light of the light within you. So have a super, super day. Much love, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.